Final round of a titanic 2022 Finetwork FIM JuniorGP World Championship concludes here at the Circuit de Toro circuit in Valencia, Spain. It's a busy track, one of the busiest in Europe, and we have the final round here next week for MotoGP. But first, there's the small matter of JuniorGP, and this track always brings a surprise. 4 kilometers in length, 18 laps ahead of us, 2 races still to come. 9 turns going left, the rest are all right-handers. There's a few overtaking hotspots, and it's cloudy, so will the weather play a part too? It has been 25 years of creating champions in this paddock. In 1998, this series was introduced as a stepping stone to Grand Prix. And 25 years later, there have been some amazing names from this paddock. Steve English alongside myself, Kiko Giles, for the first race of the day. 4 of them to come. Steve, the JuniorGP title itself is wrapped up, but still plenty to get our teeth into for the rest of today.
Yeah, still an awful lot to play for in all 3 classes, really, and certainly for a lot of these riders, it's a chance to give themselves that one last race before the winter and then build into something for next season. You do have quite a few of these riders in the Moto 3 class that will be in action here in Valencia next weekend in the World Championship as well, so keep an eye on the likes of Farioli further down the field. He's going to make his World Championship debut next week.
It is a stunning collection of names, just a few of them there. Danny Pedrosa, Jorge Lorenzo and Casey Stoner have all come through here. And of course we've got the likes of Jose Antonio Rueda, who moves on to Moto 3 World Championship action for 2023. However, before we get going with today's action, we should be about to take a look back at last time out at Motorland Aragon. And it was a really, really tough round for some. Whilst the title was already wrapped up, it was all about pride and glory, and it was Colin Via who, like at Jerez, took pole position and would go on to fight for victory. David Alonso and Rueda, the champion already crowned, in that lead group. But it was Via who was tenacious in his fight towards the front. Although this moment almost saw him on the floor as Alonso got it a bit hot into turn 1. There were crashes further downfield, but at the front, it was business as usual. David Salvador as well, right in that lead group, trying to take his first win. 4 podiums in 2022, coming into the final round of this season. The AGR team looked on, and they were about to start celebrating. It was Colin Via who had taken a 2nd victory of the season. And he is the 4-man coming in to this round in Valencia. Well, that was last time out, and we are a different kettle of fish, to use an English idiom, this weekend. The Circuit de Toro has welcomed JuniorGP for so many years. It's been one of the staples on the calendar, and this round is going to be interesting. In this class, the JuniorGP class, the title is already done. Jose Antonio Rueda has got that locked in, and he'll clear off to Moto 3 World Championship action in next season's campaign. But there is a land of opportunity, and that starts this weekend, Steve. Looking at the grid, we've got Colin Via on pole position. The last times he started on pole, he's gone on to win. So is that going to be one of those kind of dynamics that he's going to want to repeat?
Yeah, Colin on the number 95 machine, keep an eye out for him. Obviously, he's had a very strong campaign, whether you're looking at the Rookies Cup or here in the JuniorGP class. The one thing for Colin is there was a few mistakes earlier in the season, but the second half of the JuniorGP campaign, he's been able to pick up 2 race wins. He's still got 2 races here today to be able to try and add to that tally as well. So he's certainly going to be a rider worth keeping an eye on all the way through proceedings. There's actually still a lot to play for in terms of the battle for 2nd in the championship standings as well. David Salvador, Farioli, Asman and Angel Bequeras, they're all going to have ambitions to be able to move up into those top 3 spots.
In the championship, as we said a couple of times already, Rueda has already got it done. But this is qualifying review. Let's check in with Colin Via.
And the second qualifying, waited long time again. Went out with used tyres. Could make the same lap times like 40.0s. Very happy also with this, so I can use for tomorrow is very good. And then yeah, the last part of the qualifying was just waiting around, and we went out with the new tyres, but I didn't want to give the maximum because the riders were behind me. And then with the last 2 minutes to go, I pull out of the front. They were pushing, and I go behind again. And yeah, in the last lap, I got stuck again, but finally I make the pole, and I'm really happy with this one.
A third pole of the season, and he starts from the front row of the grid. He's converted the previous two. Will he do it again here today? Colin Vire on pole, and Vire not in contention for second overall in the championship. A bit of a dip in the last couple of rounds. Bounced back at Aragon, Steve, but only 2 podiums of the year as well, and both of them were victories. So that's why he's not quite in that fight for second overall.
Yeah, before Colin, it's been a very successful season. He's also in the running for the Red Bull Rookies Cup winning championship position as well. He's second in the standings in that. He's only 11 points behind Rueda in the Red Bull Rookies Cup. So it has been a very successful season. 2 wins in Junior GP, 3 wins in the Rookies Cup. So for Colin Vire, it's a big step forward this year compared to last year.
He's ahead of the reigning champion, or the newly crowned champion, Jose Antonio Rueda. There it is. The Finetwork FIM Junior GP World Champion for this year. It was his birthday yesterday, so I wonder if he'll be able to celebrate with something special here today, Steve. He's on form, he's looked good all year, and he's a deserving champion. Yeah,
he's trying to double up as the Junior GP World Champion and then also the Rookies Cup winner this season. But he has been really consistent, especially in Junior GP this season. He's going to be in the World Championship next season as well, and it's going to be interesting to see how he can adapt to that, see if he's able to follow in the footsteps of the last couple of years. It's been Pedro Acosta, Izan Guevara that have really been able to make that jump and be very successful, both of them world champions already.
Absolutely. Izan Guevara, of course, the latest one in that, and Pedro Acosta was the previous year. This is third place, Luca Lanetta. Now, Lanetta started on the front row here in Valencia earlier on in the year. Wasn't able to convert it, though, a best of 6th place. But in the last 4 rounds, really consistent, top 7 finishes. And in the last 2 rounds, 2 top 5, Steve. He is looking good for a first podium of the year.
Yeah, still chasing that first podium, but he has had 2 podiums in the Rookies Cup this season as well. So he's another rider that's just on that cusp of a really successful run.
We saw it in other times as well with Filippo Farioli. You know, riders just need to have that bit of consistency to build from, get on the podium, and it's that self-belief they have. This is one rider who has that, as the Colombian rider David Alonso, 4th on the grid. He won here earlier in the year, but that's been his only podium as well. Lack of consistency for Alonso, but he was crowned champion here in ETC a couple of years back, so positive and happy memories from Valencia.
Yeah, an ETC winner and then also a Red Bull Rookies Cup winner last season as well. So the last 2 seasons very successful, but like you said, Kiko, only the 1 race win this season, so it hasn't been what he would have expected. He's going to be in the World Championship next year, though. He's going to be one of the Aspar Gas riders, so we know he's going to make that step, so this could well be the last time we see him in Junior GP action.
Absolutely, and he makes a step with the team he's already with at the moment. As for this man on screen, David Salvador, 2nd in the championship, 4 podiums in 2022, but without a win. And I don't know how he's managed not to quite get that victory. He's been at the front in lots of races, Steve. Surely this weekend he'll be able to do it before he goes on to Moto3 in 2023 as well.
Yeah, super experienced rider. I think this is his 46th start. So certainly for him, he's still chasing that first win, but he's always been that front-running rider this year. Changed over to the Husqvarna squad for this season, and he's really been able to make a big step forward.
He was on the TM, of course, last year, and he's on the Husqvarna this year. But I want to talk about this rider. This is Alberto Ferrandez. Now, don't adjust your TV set. This is Junior GP. He was in ETC at the start of the year, but they've promoted him up, and he's doing not so bad. Best race finish of 9th. That was on his debut at Misano. He qualified in the top 10 as well, and he's put it on the 2nd row of the grid in just his 3rd race. I don't think that's too bad, Steve.
Yeah, he came in with a lot of expectations at the start of the ETC season. Didn't really go according to plan. Had a podium. He's also been pretty competitive in the Italian Moto3 Championship. He's been able to win some races. But now he's jumping onto that Moto3 bike for the last 3 rounds of this season in the Junior GP class. And it has been a pretty good adaptation for Ferrandez. He's a fast rider. We've seen that in the past in the ETC.
The fan club is there cheering him on. Another rider to watch out for is Harrison Voigt, the number 29. He heads up the 3rd row of the grid. Paolo Simoncelli is here this weekend watching the 658 Squadra Corsa team. So Harrison Voigt will be looking to sign off this year in a positive way. He's had potential all the way through this year, but a couple of crashes and injuries here and there have just plagued him a little bit. But 7th on the grid, he'll be looking for a podium.
Yeah, Catalunya and Jerez, those only finishes for him. But last time out in Aragon and also in Portimao, he retired from the leading group as well. So he's been very competitive, just hasn't really had the points to back up where he's really been running.
8th place on the grid is Daniel Sharil, the Malaysian rider. Now, Sharil was scheduled to start back on the 4th row, but there's been a myriad of penalties after qualifying for slow riding in multiple sectors. So those riders have got back at the grid start. Sharil is a big beneficiary of that. 1 top 10 this year so far, Steve. He's in a good position to back that up and maybe go on and get his best result of the season.
Yeah, Sharil, of course, he's jumped in for a full-time season here in Europe for the first time. Last year in the ATC, he was the runner-up, and he looked competitive in that, but it's a very different challenge to come across to the Junior GP paddock.
Next up on the grid, we should have in 9th place Noah Detweiler, the 17-year-old Swiss rider. He has a best race finish of 10th at Jerez early on in the year, and his best qualifying before this weekend was 13th. So Noah Detweiler, the Swiss rider, number 55, looking good here in Valencia.
Yeah, this season he's focused on the Junior GP after 3 years in the Rookies Cup. But for Detweiler, it has been a case of a few times this season he's been able to get himself on the cusp of the top 10, but to really make that breakthrough is going to be tough for him.
Other riders to keep an eye out on are the Uruguayan rider Facundo Yambias. There's the New Zealand rider behind him, Cormac Buchanan, and Italian Alessandro Morossi. That's the 4th row of the grid. We'll get through all of that very, very soon, I am sure. But the number 95 of Colin Vire is going from pole position. Can he convert it once again for a 3rd time? It will be time to tell very, very soon, but the final round of the Junior GP World Championship for 2022 is upon us. Via, Rueda and Luneta is your front row of the grid. David Alonso, David Salvador and Alberto Ferrandez, the 2nd row. That is a blockbuster opening couple of rows. Voigt, Sharil and Detweiler, a very international 3rd row. And also on the 4th row, Uruguay's Facundo Yambias ahead of Buchanan for New Zealand and Morossi. Further back, Tachikorn Boazri, he actually qualified down in 19th for this race, but because of the penalties, he's further up. Zuratuza, keep an eye out from him from the middle of the 5th row. But the big talking point is David Almanza, for the first time in his Junior GP career, qualified in the top 10, put it in the middle of the front row, but was then sent to the back of the grid for slow riding. And all the riders you see from him further back, all the way to Philip Ton and Angel Piqueras, all the way back down in 28th and 29th positions, have been given long lap penalties. Plenty to talk about, plenty to keep an eye on. Riders charging through the field, but they're all chasing one man, Steve. Colin Vire at Jerez. He gave the Netherlands their first victory. He backed it up last time out in Aragon. Can he make it a hat-trick?
Yeah, Colin Vire on pole position, the number 95. He'll also be in Moto3 World Championship action next season. That's being confirmed alongside other front row starters as well. So certainly for him, he's a rider worth keeping an eye on. Rueda, the number 99, he's our champion this season. He's trying to double up and be the Rookies Cup winner this year as well. Keep an eye out for him. David Salvador in the 2nd row of the grid, number 38. He's going to be a World Championship rider next season as well. Farioli was confirmed yesterday that he's going to be jumping onto the Tech 3 bike for next season in the Moto3 World Championship. He's also going to be in action next weekend, making his World Championship debut. So keep an eye on the number 7, but you have to look quite far down the field for that number 7. He's going to be coming through the pack on the Aspar bike.
You saw a shot there of Ramon Forcada. Now he has got some world titles and Grand Prix experience to his name. He's in the MIA Finetwork junior team that runs David Almanza, Alberto Ferrandez and Marcos Ruda. So keep an eye on them bikes, the purple bikes. You can't miss them. They're one of the most professional teams in the paddock. Their branding, their image in pit lane is the biggest, I'd say. But let's look at this track, Steve. It's a bit of it's a hard track to pass. It is one line in sectors, but we're coming to the end of October, start of November. It can start catching riders out. We saw a couple of crashes in warm-up in other classes. Where have you got to be careful around here?
Well, the good thing about it around here this time of year is you can also be quite warm, and it is a very pleasant day here. It's around about 20 degrees. It's going to get hotter and hotter in the last few days. It's been 25, 26, 27 degrees. So that means that grip shouldn't be much of an issue. The biggest problem for a lot of riders, and it's more of a Moto 2 issue than a Moto 3 issue here in the Junior GP classes, is that turn 4, you've been on the left side of the tyre for a long time. So from pretty much this point of the track until turn 4, your right-hand side of the tyre can get quite cold. That's not usually much of an issue for the Moto 3 machines, so you shouldn't expect to see too many crashes there unless it's riders just really pressing hard to try and make a move. But the biggest issue is here in Valencia, there's not that many places to make your moves. You've obviously got the start-finish straight to use the slipstream. The rest of the time, like you said, Kiko, there's one line in a lot of places here.
Just a quick look at the championship. Rueda's got the title. Forget about him, but the battle is for second place. David Salvador, 128 points. Third place, Filippo Farioli, 113. 15 points between them. If Farioli beats Salvador in this race, it goes to race 2 later on today. If Salvador beats Farioli by 10 points, or it has to be 11 points mathematically to not go to countback, he's wrapped up second in the title. Shaifuddin Azman is starting further down the field, is also in the fight, but all eyes will be on that front row. Colin Vire looking to convert it once again. We've got yellow flags. That's a 73. I think that's Alessio Mate, one of the new riders on the MTA bikes, who's got a problem there.
Yeah, you can see him just being taken out to pit lane, so we'll see whether or not we're able to get this started immediately, or if we have to have a little bit of a delay. It looks like we are going to go for the start of this 18-lap race. 18 laps ahead of us then, the Ricardo Tormo circuit for the penultimate time in Junior GP this year. Lights out. Good start from Colin Vire. He got that driving from pole. Colin Vire, the number 95, is surely going to grab the whole shot. There's weaving all the way down this field. That's the 33. Asri trying to come through on the inside, but it's Vire who's grabbed the whole shot. Rueda's into second place, and that looks like in third place it's David Alonso. Loads of riders. Oh, we got Crasher at the back. Loads of riders going out wide. That is Azman. That's Azman. The 63 has gone down. So the fourth place man in your title race, he can forget about second now. I'm sure that's Azman. It looks like the 63 to me. Yeah,
but
Azman started all the way down the back of the field, so that probably is him. But you also have the likes of Piqueras down there as well, so trying to make some progress from the back of the grid.
Fourth and fifth in this title race. What has happened there? It is confirmed Shaifuddin Azman. We've got yellow flags at turn 1 and 4. That's turn 1, what you're seeing on your screens. Meanwhile, trouble free out front. Colin Vire's got away well here. Rueda second, Alonso third. Harrison Boyd up from 7th up to 4th. Good start from the 658 rider. And round out top 5 at the moment, it is Lanetta, and that's his teammate Marossi who's gone down. So that's the accident at turn 4.
Yeah, and it is easy to happen on the first lap as well. You're trying to make up a lot of space. You're trying to get yourself through to the front of the field. As it is, though, Vire converting that pole position, really good opening lap for him. But in the Moto 3 class, you're going to stay in a big group at the front here in Valencia.
We've seen time and time again, Vire is a comfortable race leader. It sounds silly, but he likes to lead races from the front. He believes in himself. He believes in his pace. He's looked fast all through qualifying. He had a crash after he set his pole lap, but that's not put him back further. 44, I think, was coming through there. That was one of the Estrella Galicia by his 94. That's Yambias up from the 4th row. So Facundo Yambias, he had a great opening round in Estoril back at the start of the season. But he's right in the lead group now as Rueda draws alongside Vire. But Vire on the brakes is good. And Alonso looking up the inside for second, but can't get there.
Yeah, just further back as well, the number 7 as well. We're seeing Farioli make a great start. We know he's going to be in action here next weekend, but he's had to qualify at the back of the field. He's already into those leading top 10 spots. So really good effort there from the Aspar rider. One
rider who didn't get away well, but is still in that lead group, is the 38 David Salvador. Started in 5th. He's back down to something like 6th place at the moment as Yambias looks on the inside of Voigt, but thinks better of it. Great start from Almanza. I'd make Almanza in about 10th place at the moment. The purple bike, the number 22. He's not the first one. That's the 54 Ferrandez as Rueda goes to the front at turn number 7.
Yeah, good move as well onto the back straight there, and certainly for Rueda, he knows he's going to be attacked straight back from Colin Vire, but he's not afraid to get himself to the front. We've seen it all the way through this season in the Junior GP class in particular. He's been a cut above everyone else, but it is him versus Vire for the Red Bull Rookies Cup as well, so both of those riders very competitive all the way through this campaign.
Fantastic stuff from Vire to get back through as Voigt momentarily was in third, but David Alonso shoves his way back through. That's a great move there.
Yeah, Alonso, of course, ETC winner in 2020, Red Bull Rookies Cup champion last season as well, so he's a rider with a lot of experience. This season hasn't gone according to plan. He was a race winner here already this season in the second round of the campaign, so keep an eye on the number 80. He goes well here in Valencia, but certainly he's going to be under pressure down the start-finish straight as well, because Harrison Voigt on the number 29 on the 658 machine, he's looking very competitive as well already in this race. Voigt, we've seen it all the way through this season, Kiko. He's been able to get to the front, but to be able to get to the finish has been a big challenge for him.
Absolutely, he pushes on very soon, and sometimes maybe, perhaps it's a bit too hard. Rueda on the inside at turn 1, gets ahead of Via. So on lap 3 of this race, it is Rueda who has taken the lead, but whether or not he'll stay there, we know Vi wants to snap straight back. Whoa, pushing and shoving Voigt up into 3rd place, gets ahead of Alonso.
Yeah, we saw last time around that it was on the run onto the back straight that we saw that Colin Vire in the 95 was able to get through and Rueda in the 99. So we'll see if he's able to repeat that feat on this lap as well. Only a couple of corners until then.
Number 22 on your screen, the purple bike. We said about him a lap ago, David Almanza. Great start from Almanza. He was way down after that penalty. He originally qualified 2nd. He's got the fastest lap of the race. He's just behind his teammate, Alberto Ferrandez. That's the number 54. But out front, we've seen it so many times this year. We've seen it all before. Jose Antonio Rueda is starting to try and stretch this lead group.
Yeah, we're already seeing that the lead group is starting to separate from the next group as well. So at the back of this group, you're looking at Daniel Sharil, and then you've already got a bit of a gap until Bouasri as well. So we are starting to see a little bit of a split at the front.
Track limits warning for number 85. That's Xabi Zuratouza. Long lap penalty. That might have been for Farioli. It was the Farioli. Number 7, the Filippo Farioli has gone and done a track limits. That'll be for slow riding, I believe. That was notified. So good that he served that straight away. But that's crucial for 2nd place in the title. He's going to need to push hard now to get back on terms with David Salvador. The bike with the fluorescent yellow in 5th position. He holds 2nd in the championship. That is the main battle so far in the title race.
Yeah, the good thing for Farioli is it doesn't actually cost you too much time to take the long lap penalty here in Valencia. So he's only just dropped down a couple of spots. So it's up to him now to try and bridge that gap to the 32.
Via back to the front on lap 4. Into turn 1 we go. So Colin Via, that slipstream all the way down the front straight. Very, very good indeed, the number 95. That's Jacob Rosenthaler, the number 78 on the Liquid Moly Intact Junior team. Let's hope it is still intact and the bike hasn't taken a beating, but he's up and okay, at least he's walking. Yeah,
turn 12 tends to be where you just fold the front on the run down the hill, so hopefully for Jacob, not too much damage onto that bike. There's still another race left to finish off your Junior GP season for Rosenthaler later on in the afternoon.
So as we try and settle into this race at the moment, let's do a quick rundown of the top 10. Via ahead of Rueda. David Alonso sits in 3rd. Harrison Voigt 4th. David Salvador is in 5th place. That will be good enough at the moment to give him a good shot at 2nd overall in the title. We'll do the maths as we get through it later on in the weekend, in the race. Facundo Yambias is in 6th place and all over Salvador like a rash through turns 10, I think that is. And he's up. Oh, that's Salvador on the inside of Voigt. Good move. That's for 4.
Yeah, just about Yambias as well on the 94 machine. One of the best races we've seen from him so far this season was actually here in Valencia. He was running inside the top 5 or 6 spots and then crashed out of the race. But he's been strong all the way through this season. Top 10 runner. He's got World Championship experience last year in the 300 World Championship as well. So he has a bit of experience, but good to see him running in the lead group once again.
I think there was one of the Finetwork bikes making a move there. It was Almanza. He's got ahead of Lanetta. Luca Lanetta started on the front row. We said if he can get away with this lead group, he'll be in good stead. But he's now getting a lesson from David Almanza, who should have been on the front row, but was a bit of a naughty boy throughout the rest of the weekend and was given a back of the grid start for slow riding. But out front, no change. And David Alonso in 3rd place at the moment, keeping calm.
Yeah, and you can see Farioli at the back of that group as well on the number 7 machine. He's matching the pace of the race leaders, but he's pulling back time of the riders in front of him, so he's going to get himself into this lead group in the next couple of laps. Farioli,
of course, is the nearest challenger to Salvador for 2nd overall in this title race. Farioli with a race win, Salvador without a race win, so if it's tied at the end of it all, there's Joel Kelso. He's doing a good job in Moto 3 this season. Very, very strong rider indeed. He made a step last year in this class, couldn't quite take the title, but is very, very strong, and he's really a star to look out for. Australia back on the map, and the Netherlands are too. Number 95, Via, at the moment ahead of Rueda, the Spaniard, and the Colombian in 3rd, David Alonso.
Yeah, Alonso on that number 80 machine. We haven't really seen him at the front all that often through the course of this campaign, but he's certainly a rider just finishing off the campaign very strong. We know that he's obviously going to be in the World Championship next season. This season hasn't gone according to plan. It looks like Yambias trying to get down the inside of him once again.
Yeah, Yambias up the inside of Voigt. That's for 5th position. Just getting on our timing screens that Xabi Zuratouza has got a long lap penalty. He was given a track limits warning. Now he's been given a long lap. He's obviously not adhered to the warning. So Zuratouza will have to go the long way around. That is Alessandro Morossi. He crashed at turn 4 in the opening lap, but it's okay. He'll get to do it all again later. At the front, Via still leading. Second place is Rueda. Third place is Alonso. Salvador trying to get slipstream now off Alonso in fourth place. Can't quite get there. But the front five, slight gap back to sixth place, which is Yambias, I think. But through on the inside goes Alonso. And that's a good move there up into second position. Fastest up of the race for Yambias. David Almanza is the next rider up as Rueda gets back into P2.
Yeah, Almanza's doing a really good job there on the number 22 machine. We saw him set the fastest lap a few laps ago, and he's been able to gradually just ease his way through one rider here, one rider there. As it is, he's up there on the outside of the top 5 looking in, but he is going to give himself the opportunity to come through in another couple of riders because he has been 10th of a second faster than each of the guys in front of him over the last few laps.
Ferrandez has been given a track limits warning, so the number 54 in this lead group, we've actually seen him get a few track limits warnings before in the European Talent Cup. That action is coming up later on, of course, and now he's taken that all the way into Junior GP as Yambias gets into fourth place. It's a great ride this from Yambias from the fourth row of the grid up into the top 4. Salvador back into 5th, but that's okay. He's still pulling off the inside. That's a lunge. That's through. Yambias trying to push and shove. The Uruguayan versus the Colombian. We've got a South American duel going on for P3. And it's gone the way of Uruguay in a minute. So Yambias through into third place. Good stuff from Yambias. He's a believer today.
Yeah, still only a third of the way through this race, so Alonso needs to keep a cool head. He's trying to pick up his second win of the season for Yambias, so he's once again just showing that he can run in those leading positions. And he's a rider definitely worth keeping an eye on for next season. Like I said, he's got World Championship experience in the 300 World Championship, but this season he's really been able to make a bit of a name for himself here in Junior GP.
Rueda drawing alongside Via, but we've seen Via good on the brakes before, and he's good on the brakes again into turn 1. So Via looking very, very strong into that first braking zone. He's very good late on the brakes there. He's looking good into turn 2 as well. No one really able to challenge him. Salvador versus Almanza. That is for P5. Almanza gets run out wide. Salvador holds on to that 5th position, but you get the feeling that Almanza's going to pick his way through very soon.
Yeah, it looks like Farioli's made a bit of a mistake at the start of this lap as well, because he had been 3 or 4 tenths of a second faster than the riders in front of him over the last few laps. As it is, there's now a big gap back. He's dropped himself a lot closer to Buasri as well, so he's clearly made a mistake in this lap. That could well be a little bit of a bridge too far for him as well, so he really needs to get the head down, time trial, hope that the riders in front of him have that battle with one another, and then it brings him back to them.
Behind Farioli, we've got Daniel Sharil, Angel Piqueras, Tachko Barazzi, Noah Detweiler, and Jabi Zuratura, of course, with that long lap penalty. We've got track limits warnings for number 12 and 33 for Azri, that is, as well as number 12, Jacob Rulston. As at the front, we've got a battle here. That's Yambias going up into second. He's patting the rear seat unit, but through on the inside comes Rueda. So the Estrella Galicia boys are not working together really here, and that little battle's just given via that half a second, maybe that 3/4 of a second he might want to have down the front straight as Alonso looks on the inside of Yambias. That's tight at the final corner, but good riding from Yambias. Corner speed, key onto the front straight.
Yeah, you got a couple of different bikes at the front of this field. We've obviously got Colin Via right there on the KTM. You've also got the Hondas for the two Estrella Galicia bikes as well, and then KTMs, Husqvarnas. They're all similar bikes there in that lead group. But it also means that in this scrap, what we're seeing from, and you can see Yambias gets himself pushed out a little bit wide, Farioli out wide as well. But in this scrap, you've got very different ways to set similar lap time. Oh, that's Yambias.
Yambias is out there at turn 2. He was battling hard with Rueda, his teammate, and also David Alonso. But Yambias has gone from the 4th row of the grid. That's really taken the sting out of this lead group. He was coming through very well, and he can't believe it. Another opportunity for that first podium for Ryder and Country goes begging, but he's going to try and get back in the race. You never know, with a red flag or something, he might be able to get back. This is what happened down into turn 1. Wow, that's tight, Steve.
Yeah, you can see how close they are, and they stay right beside each other and they run down in towards 2. And for Yambias on 94, he's trying to hold on to those wide lines. He's trying to sweep around the outside of the gas machine, and just not able to do that. And that's part of where you get the differences between the KTM and the Honda as well. So that's a little bit unfortunate for Yambias. Again, running at the front of the field, like we've seen so many times this season.
So many times.
But crashing again, unfortunately, like we've seen so many times this season.
Long lap penalty for Zuratuza, and also for the number 54 of Alberto Ferrandez. Ferrandez is in this lead group, so Ferrandez is going to have a long lap penalty to deal with. He's I say he's in the lead group. The front 5 are now just starting to break away with 11 laps to go.
Yeah, and that'll be for track limits as well. We've obviously seen them given a few warnings already. We've seen a lot of riders running out wide. Very easy to do through turn 1. Everyone's trying to carry as much speed as possible through T1 to get into turn 2, and it's easy just to run out of curve on the outside. We tend to see it an awful lot here in Valencia. Track limits becomes a big thing to keep an eye on all the way through the race around here, just because of the nature of the track.
Via though, so far, and I'm just watching Via, Steve, he looks, wheels in line, he looks good, he looks quite cool, comfortable, as we said before, at the front of this field. He looks like someone who's dictating the pace of the race.
Yeah, personal best last time around though from Rueda, Alonso, Almanza and Salvador as well. So those riders, they're just building themselves up. That's why we've seen that little bit of a split now between Salvador and Luneta. So the top 5 just trying to edge themselves away.
Luneta in 6th, the number 58 ahead of the number 29 on the 658 Honda. That is Harrison Voigt. Voigt, of course, looking for a top 6 that he's really been unlucky to not have more of. As you can see, bottom of the screens, track limit penalties, long laps for 85 and 54.02s with Ferrandez.
Yeah, just looking at that 6th place battle as well. Luneta on the number 58 machine. Qualified well this weekend on the front row grid. He's still chasing that first podium. Obviously looks like it's going to be a step away from him right now as well. He's under pressure from Farioli, who's done a really good job to get himself back into this group. But that second group, the pace has dropped off a little bit, and that's why Farioli needs to make the move now, so he's got half a chance of being able to battle it out for the podium spots. But for the likes of Luneta, it's been top 10 running all the way through this campaign. It looks like he's going to be relegated in another spot because Farioli's come through, and also maybe the 54 there as well from Ferrandez.
Battles all the way through this field. You can see the 32 is Sharil. He's trying to stay with them in the background. Look at Alonso down the outside. I don't believe it. Down into turn 1, but he's got the job done. So David Alonso from 3rd up into 2nd. Wow, Farioli's car park routed it at turn 1.
Yeah, Farioli's good. Definitely getting a long lap penalty. That's 3 or 4 times we've seen him run off the racetrack as well. So he's just trying to chase back as many points as possible at this stage. He's 3rd in the championship standings coming into this round, but it's such a close battle between 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th that he's just trying to push as hard as he can, but that's a big mistake. Yeah,
that's a massive error from Farioli. I'll be shocked if he doesn't get at least a warning. Of course, his long lap was for slow sectors earlier on in qualifying, as Rueda goes back in 2nd ahead of Alonso. We've got a double long lap penalty now for 02s. He's been given a long lap penalty for not doing the first long lap penalty, one would assume. Yeah,
he'll get a ride-through penalty if he doesn't take the double long lap penalty as well. So certainly for 02s on the number 85 machine, he's well down the order, just trying to still stay in the points-paying positions. But it is a case of he needs to take those penalties now.
Remember what happened if you was watching the Argentina World Superbike round with Axel Bassani, given 2 long lap penalties, and in the end he was just given a ride through. So that could same be applied here. The 54 Ferrandez has taken his long lap penalty. He slots in behind Daniel Sharil. He'll look to get that place back, and it is a track limits warning. I can tell you on our TV monitor, the number 7 of Filippo Farioli. So Farioli in 6th is going to have to behave himself for the second half of this race.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on Farioli. You can see though the leading group of 5, they're all split by around about a 1/10 of a second. So expect these riders at the front to change positions on the run down in towards turn 1.
3 abreast into turn 1. Alonso looking for the advantage if he can get it. Look at Almanza, I don't believe it, 4th. He's going round the outside now. He's on the green, so that move isn't going to count. Oh dear, Luneta's the one out there that time. But Almanza, I thought he must have got his braking mark a bit wrong. Tight for 2nd. Rueda through into 2nd place ahead of Alonso. And Almanza, that has opened the door. Not enough though, as he has to think about it for 4th. And now he's back to 5th. He compromises line into turn 4. And Salvador comes through.
Who'd be a race director with all these potential long lap penalties? There's a lot to keep tracking around Valencia. We do tend to see it sector 1 especially. That's where you get an awful lot of the transgressions for exceeding track limits. But from this point on now, this is where we move into the second half of the race, into the final third. This is where the riders are now really jockeying for their position. This is where they need to make sure that they're able to see where they're stronger than the other riders.
Yeah, this is where it already counts as well. This stage in the race, you know, you want to start making the moves. You don't want to be sat around where Farioli is 6th, a little bit isolated without that slipstream down the front straight. He's too far back to be picking any of that up. You want to be around third place. David Alonso in the middle of the group, but fast and looking like he's shown potential to get to the front. He looks like he can make a move wherever he wants to.
Yeah, Farioli, though, is still fast. He's still a couple of tenths of a second faster than the riders in front of him. They're battling for position. They're costing each other a few tenths here, a few tenths there. So for Farioli on the number 7 machine, 7 laps to go. He's still going to think, you know what, I've still got a chance in this one.
The thing is with Farioli, there's 7 laps, but around a 14-corner layout, a couple of mistakes onto track limits, a couple of misdemeanors, and all that hard work of catching a group ahead of you. We've got a crasher in the background. Someone was on the deck in the background.
I wonder if that's Sherrill.
It looked like Sherrill. It's Rueda takes lead off Via. Let's get back to that in a minute. Turn 1. It is
Piqueras.
It is Piqueras. It is Piqueras. Oh, dearie me, Angel Piqueras. Well, there goes. That's the 5th place rider in the championship. He's only 11 points clear of David Alonso. And as it stands, even though David Alonso is being shuffled around by Rueda, Alonso would take that 5th place in the title. So a disaster, really, for Piqueras. The good thing he's up and okay and he's on his feet. But the number 18, he'll get a second bite of the cherry later on this afternoon. But that is not a good way to start his day.
No, and for Piqueras, probably the worst thing as well is you just lose the information for the second half of this race as well. But he's a rider that's been able to do a pretty good job in the Junior GP over this season, but a rider that there was probably a little bit more expectation on what he's been able to deliver up to this point. But when your teammates to Rueda that's done so much winning this season, it's a real challenge to be able to live up to that billing. We've seen Yambias in this race right at the front of the field as well. So that Australia Galicia team always puts out a very strong entry in the Junior GP class.
And Piqueras has had a couple of podiums as well. One of them came here actually early in the year when he was second. The other one was at Jerez, but he was track limits then as well. So Piqueras, unfortunate end to the penultimate race of his season so far. He'll get another chance to do it later.
Yeah, had a podium in Misano as well, but 2 non-scores out of the last 3 races. That's what relegates you down the order. But a lot of the times for teams, what they're looking for in the Junior GP class is really the high water marks and to see what you're able to do on your really good days, see if you're able to get to the front of the field. And that tends to be what gets you your opportunity to race in the World Championship.
Colin Via, perfect example. 2 podiums this year. Both of them have been wins. Both of them have been from the front row. Both of them have been from pole. So can he do it again? He's leading it good so far.
Look who's at the back of this group now. Farioli on the number 7 machine. New fastest lap of the race. He's right there as well. He pulled back 6 tenths of a second on Almanza last time. The reason for that is the fighting that's going on in those lead positions. Everyone's now jockeying for position to get themselves into the podium spots.
Farioli was second in race 2 earlier in the year. At Valencia. He was in the lead group in race 1 but crashed out with Almanza, and Almanza is his next rider, his next victim in this lead group of what is now 6. Further back, Lanetta there to 58, bit isolated in 7th and 8th place for Harrison Voigt, but those two have a good ride nonetheless. Almanza on the inside of Salvador gets that job done nice and easy. That's up to 4th for him, flicking left through turn 9 then right through turn 10. No retaliation from Salvador that time around. So Almanza, I remind you, from so far down on this grid, Almanza was way back. He got the penalty. He was originally meant to start second. He will start second later on from the middle of the front row in race 2. But a really good ride this through the field from the number 22 on the purple bike in 4th position.
Salvador there on the 38 defending the position there from Farioli, and for David Salvador it is the final 2 races of his Junior GP career before he steps up to the World Championship next season, still chasing that first race victory in the class. He's always been a front runner. He's at 8 podiums, he's at 4 already this season, but until he picks up that race win, it's one of those big things that's a monkey on his back. Just
eating away at him. And we say about Almanza, oh, that was close. Salvador had to roll out of it then, I think, on Almanza as he goes through on the number 22. So Salvador up into 4th, but he almost tagged it back. Got yellow flags at turn 11. That's the right-hander at the long lap penalty. So we'll see what's happened now. Hopefully everyone is up and okay. But we say about Almanza's charge through the field, Farioli as well. Farioli scheduled to start on the 3rd row. He was a back of the grid starter, but obviously there was about 10 back of the grid starts, so he actually started from 21st. So they came through together, 20th and 21st. Almanza and Farioli are 5th and 6th in this race. So they've done the hard work, the hard yards to get up into this lead group, and what a victory it would be if they was to pull that one off. But I must say, Colin Via is looking very, very good at the moment with 5 to go.
Yeah, Via looks very comfortable. Rueda looks comfortable. And David Alonso has always been very fast here in Valencia. Whether you look back to the ETC days, Moto3 class now, he's always been very competitive here. Keep an eye on the number 80 machine. We are just seeing, though, a ride-through penalty for the 85. That's Urtuza. He hasn't taken any of his long lap penalties. That's why he's going to have that long. He's going to have the ride-through penalty. But at least for him, that'll be the end of his penalties. He's not going to carry it forward into this afternoon's race.
No, the only other thing they could do is if he doesn't do the ride through, is probably put him at the back of the grid, and that'll be that served obviously at the start of the race. But we cross the line with 4 to go. Colin Via, the number 95, is leading. The 99 of Jose Antonio Rueda has already got this title won. Draws alongside Via, but Via on the brakes is superb. 4th place for Salvador. He gets ahead of the 22 of Almanza. And watching it all in 3rd place on the outside at the minute is David Alonso. As I say, he's in 3rd, he just gets shuffled back to 4th. As through comes Salvador, who is looking for that first win.
Yeah, the pace is slow at the front. They're down by 6-7 tenths of a second compared to what they're capable of doing. And so for Colin Via, he hasn't put himself in a position to try and pull the pin a little bit at this point.
Via sitting pretty at the top here in race 1 of the day. The number 95, 2 wins so far this season. Can he make it a 3rd? Rueda is looking for a 6th win. That would put him level with Marcos Ramirez's season a few years ago. The outright wins in the season belong to Fabio Quartararo. It's David Alonso looking on the inside. That was showing a wheel. He's almost on top of him. So Alonso getting, not impatient, but getting eager to take that 3rd place back, because he hasn't really been able to lay a glove on the 2 at the front of this field, Via and Rueda, and you can guarantee in the last 2 laps of this one, Via and Rueda are going to get their elbows out good and proper. But it is a proper lead group of 6. It's a 12-wheeler at the front. Both the Gasses are right there in 4th and 6th. 5th and 6th, I remind you, have come from the 7th over the grid, whilst the top 3 in this group have all come off the front row. So positivity and different aspects of this race all the way through, and we're coming into the final few laps. 3 laps to go.
Yeah, you have to say that for Rueda on the number 99 machine, the lone Honda in that lead group, he's doing a very good job, like we've seen all the way through this campaign. And he's just kept that watching brief behind Colin Via all the way through. You can see there, just half wheels. I'm not trying to make the move into turn 1. Keep an eye on Rueda. But Colin Via, 2-time a race winner already this season. He's also up against that big rival of his, Rueda. So he wants to make sure that he's able to lay down a marker before the final races of the Red Bull Rookies Cup campaign next week as well.
Farioli has just gone into 5th place. He's got ahead of David Alonso. So David Alonso, who has sat 3rd for most of this race, has gone back to 6th at the back of this group. But with 3 laps to go, it might not be a bad thing. Let the riders ahead of you do all the fighting and pick up the crumbs when they start falling. But at the moment, 95, Colin Via has got this one, I won't say sorted, but he hasn't looked like making a mistake so far. Salvador is in 2nd now, and David Salvador, before he moves on to Moto3 World Championship action next year, surely is going to want to win, and he will throw the kitchen sink at it, although he's got to be careful, because the rider who's challenging him for 2nd place overall in the title race, Filippo Farioli, is in 4th, just 2 places behind him on track.
Yeah, this is the first time you've been watching Junior GP. The big thing in these final few laps is this where you really see the racecraft for the riders. Who's got that little bit more smarts about them to be able to try and put their bike in the right place? Who's got the tactics down? And certainly a lot of the time here in Valencia, you see 3rd position is a good spot to be in, and going into those last couple of laps, you're able to pick off a couple of riders in front of you. But it's all going to be who drops the hammer, who really tries to open up a bit of a gap, who shows their full potential, and who does it a little bit earlier than everyone else. At the front of the field, Colin Via hasn't really done anything at this stage to drop the pace of this race. He's just been able to keep this as a lead group. We're still in the mid 1 minute 40s, about 5 tenths of a second, 6 tenths of a second off what they're capable of doing. But you can see now for Farioli on the number 7 machine, he's now made his move up into P2, but 2 laps to go. It's still a long way to go in this race.
Great move by Farioli, 4th to 2nd, but he's back to 3rd as Rueda comes. Oh!
Almanza!
Almanza off, big eyesight there at turn 2, easily done. Almanza, all the hard work from the 7th over the grid. He started 20th. He was so close there. Luckily, he was all right. Wow, through on the inside comes David Alonso. The gloves have come off then, and that is what it means for the team. Almanza, all that hard work is undone. I want to say he's okay. He is obviously going to be aching after that, but Steve, that was a big get off then.
Yeah, and you can see at this stage of the race, this is where the tactics change. This is where you try and make the moves this week. You get a little bit more aggressive. You can see there the scrap once again with Alonso picks off David Salvador, now picks off Farioli, who gets bundled out of the way as well by Salvador. But this is where the race changes, the tactics change. This is where you really get aggressive and try and hit the front.
And Rueda has hit the front. Rueda has got to the lead. And now, will he try and break them? Good to see that David Almanza is on his feet. Talk us through it.
He's on the outside here in the 22, and he's just getting overtaken by Alonso. He tries to open the gas a little bit early. There just isn't the grip there for that line and that amount of corner speed, so he gets caught out. It's unfortunate. That's where we saw Jan Biasov, his crash, again, trying to battle with Alonso, and it just shows you just how well Alonso had done on that lap, but he gets duffed up on the run into the last corner. We're into the last lap. Keep an eye on the number 80. He's obviously been able to make those moves the last few laps. Rueda at the front, though, he's going to be under pressure from Bayer.
Last lap time then here in Junior GP, race 1 of the day. Race 2 coming up later, but Rueda is the rider at the moment who has got the lead. Third place has just gone the way of Salvador. Can Colin Vire in second place launch an attack on the 99? Not at turn 2. David Alonso can on the 38 though. David Alonso up into third.
Clever riding though at the front from Rueda. He's forcing the riders to always have to go down that long way around the outside. He's putting his bike in the position to be able to defend the position.
Oh, through on the inside. Salvador took no prisoners there. That was up there at turn 4. We're through turn 5 now. Salvador back into third.
It's all going to be about what happens on the run into the last corner. You can see for Salvador in the 38, he's put himself into a spot now to be able to try and get through on the 95 of Colin Vire. But Rueda with that little bit of a margin right now.
The thing is, through this next part of the course, it is all very one line, and they're not close enough to make that what would have to be a lunge on Rueda at the moment. We know that in the last sector, though, Vire is quick. Can he make up the time?
Vire needs to build up from this point on until the last corner. The last corner is a very tight left-hander. If you're anywhere in a position to attack, you just got to dive bomb down the inside, force the other rider to sit the bike up. Salvador is worth keeping an eye on, the one, the 38. He looks like he's got good grip underneath him. He's going to be in a position to attack the 95.
This is it, the last sector, the last couple of corners. Whoa, Farioli riding the berm there through turn 12, but we're through 13 now. It's going to be the last corner. It's going to be Colin Vire, 4 abreast into the last turn. Salvador has gone through the lot of them. We've got crash for Alonso. He's on the deck, he's out of it. But David Salvador has pinched it on the run to the line. He's going to do it. David, or is he? Colin Vire has done it. We got it wrong all the way up to the line. Salvador has to wait again, or does he? Or does he? Timing says Vire didn't get it by 2,000 of a second, but I thought across the line Vire had that then. We'll wait for official confirmation. But David Salvador, at the moment, the 38 has got it.
Salvador is celebrating. Colin Vire isn't. They're the riders that know it best. Salvador finally a race winner in the Junior GP class.
Confirmed. Salvador has done it. 2,000ths of a second. It doesn't get any closer. David Salvador, we saw on the run to the line, we thought he may have just been done by Colin Vire, who was absolutely charging through on the AGR KTM team. That was a fantastic final lap of the race, unless you are David Alonso, who got it all wrong. They were 4 abreast into the last turn. Alonso just couldn't quite get there, but David Salvador, how many times? It's a 5th podium, but more importantly, in his 2022 season and indeed his career, it is a first victory, and it's the first win for Husqvarna this year. David Alonso, the Colombian rider, is still down. That was a big get-off. This is what happened. Alonso, he's got it. Oh, he's sliding on the way in. He tagged Salvador. Salvador is so lucky there to stay on. Rueda misses it all, but it was a bit of a flyer from David Alonso. And then the run to the line, Salvador, I tell you what, that is very, very close. Salvador and Vire. I thought Vire had that then, but the timing is obviously correct. And Salvador does take it, and the 38 will be elated with that one. What a sensational finish. Another winner then in Junior GP, David Salvador, and with that, I would almost say he has second place on the in the title wrapped up, because he finished first Filippo Farioli, his nearest rival, finished in 3rd place. There's a difference of 9. The difference coming into this race was 15, so the difference now coming out of this race is 24. Obviously, there's 25 for a win. Ignore that graphic. Colin Via didn't crash. He's there in the number 95 is coming into pit lane. So 2nd place in the title for David Salvador isn't done officially, but it is mathematically now very tough for Filippo Farioli. Having said that, a DNF for Salvador later on in race 2 versus a win for Farioli would give him that 2nd place overall. And don't forget Shamafoudin Asman, who was also mathematically in contention for that place, crashed out earlier on. So actually, in terms of the championship, Salvador winning with Farioli in 3rd, Asman, Piqueras, Alonso and Cruces not scoring any major points really, has been a fantastic turn of events for him. As the riders arrive back in Parc Ferme, Salvador, this will feel like a very, very, very good victory. I mean, he has looked good so many times throughout 2022 and also last year when he was on the factory TM racing machine. He has looked in very good condition. He has been one of the riders who you always think, why has he not got that race win? And for no obvious reason. It's always been misfortune or a slipstream or something has got in the way. We remember, cast our minds back to Jerez when he was in that lead group with Colin Via and he crashed out with 2 corners to go on the last lap and you just think, oh, is it ever going to come? Well, it has now, and that is fantastic for the number 38, David Salvador. And there will be big cheers in Parc Ferme. He's a really popular guy in the paddock, and that sound says it all. So at last, a victory for Salvador, and a great job, not just for Salvador. Look at the tears down here, the scenes in Parc Ferme for Salvador. Very, very emotional stuff. He will go to the Moto3 World Championship in 2022, so big things to come from this man, I'm sure. Some would say he should have been on the grid this year, but he, in the end, couldn't quite get there. He's got a proper chance next year, and that is what matters, because, you know, with that, it is a very, very strong ride. That is a comfortable win against this man, Colin Via, who's 2nd. His face doesn't look too pleased with it, I must say, because he wouldn't be, because he's going to think he had that on the line. I still think he did have it on the line, but never mind. After all of that, Colin Via, he led the race very, very comfortably. And I can tell you that David Salvador, with that victory, becomes the 25th different Spanish winner since 2012 in the Junior GP category. And he's the 53rd since the category was introduced, obviously back in the day in 1998, in the 125 class. So David Salvador adding his name to history there in terms of Spanish race winners. And of course, there's been plenty of Spanish race winners who've gone on to become world champions multiple times. Danny Pedrosa, Jorge Lorenzo, and more. This is that last corner. You can see that Alonso just gets it all wrong and he's thrown over the top. That is going to hurt. Hopefully he's okay. Piqueras, it's Rueda who's out wide, the number 99. And I still think that's so close. 0.02 of a second Via versus Salvador, but it is Salvador who's got it. So Via denied that 3rd victory of 2022, but he will have another chance, of course, later on to do it. And of course, later on, the penalties that applied to this grid won't apply, so we'll see the likes of David Almanza and Filippo Farioli go from their original starting position. And I must say, we haven't really spoke about it enough. Filippo Farioli there in 3rd position. Fantastic from the 7th row of the grid. But it's time to hear from the race winner for the first time. David Salvador, race winner in Junior GP.
David Salvador, finally a race win in Junior GP, but talk us through that last lap.
Yes, incredible. I am very happy for me, for my team, because this year your job is very, very good. And yes, it was very difficult race because the calling your pace is very fast. But yet in the last corner, I go to the overtake to Rueda and Colin. Finally, victory is amazing. Thank you to all the people who support me and to my fans and my sponsor, my team. And this victory is for all.
Congratulations, David. Some words in Spanish as well.
Buah, ha sido una carrera muy emocionante, muchos adelantamientos, ritmo rápido por la parte de Colin, que hemos estado haciendo todo el rato 40s. Y al final he visto la posibilidad, no tenía en mente ganar porque estaba pensando un poco también en el subcampeonato, pero me he visto la oportunidad y digo, ¿por qué no? Me tiro aquí en la última curva y mira, al final la primera victoria del año. Quiero agradecer a todo mi equipo, a toda la gente que ha venido a verme, a los patrocinadores y sobre todo al equipo que ha hecho un gran curro durante todo el año.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
What a way to sign off the first race of the final round of this season. Colin Vire, though, got the whole shot. He was looking on for a victory all the way through this stage. He had a crash further back. That was Sire Food in Asman. Second place in the title hopes, done at turn 1. Meanwhile, the race continued, and it was Vire ahead of Rueda for the most part of it. Alonso pushing and shoving his way through. Harrison Voigt in the early stages, number 29, looking good. Rueda, the champion already crowned a couple of rounds ago, was momentarily in the lead, but it was David Salvador who, around half race distance, really started making moves, as did David Alonso. He was really keen to repeat his Valencia success from earlier on in this season and go for a second win of the campaign. Facundo Yambias, the Uruguayan rider, number 94, was in the mix, but not for long. He tucked the front to turn 2 in the second half of this race, and he was down and out, but he'll have a chance to repeat it later in race 2. David Almanza was trying to go around the outside of all of them. He came from the 7th over the grid, as did Filippo Farioli. Farioli, of course, having a long lap as well as the back of the grid start. Angel Piqueras in the background had crashed out, but at the front, Jose Antonio Rueda was the rider, now starting to push the pace. Piqueras was just pushing his bike back to pit lane. Vire was once again in the lead, whilst Almanza had this massive high side, and it all came down to the final corner. David Alonso got it completely wrong. He tagged the back of David Salvador. We thought Salvador was going to get pipped on the line by Colin Vire, but apparently Salvador's the winner. The number 38, the 25th different Spanish winner in the Junior GP class. 0.02 of a second between the pair of them in one of the closest finishes in the 25 years of Junior GP action. Plenty of atmosphere and emotion down in Parc Ferme. David Salvador, at last, a winner. And now it's time for the podium ceremony. A Spaniard, a Dutchman and an Italian in the top 3. Jaime Fernandez with the for the team's trophy. 26 titles in the Leglis Academy history, which is mightily impressive. One of the teams that have really given so much to motorcycle racing's young talent. Filippo Farioli, third in the race, third in the championship. It's not mathematically over. Second for Colin Vire, denied a third win of the year, but it's a first win for David Salvador. Handshakes and respect right across the podium. Ignacio Verneda, the FIM Deputy President, giving out the trophies. And of course, we'll get the championship trophies later on as well. Farioli, 24 points now behind Salvador in the championship standings, if my maths are correct, which is always dubious, of course, when you're in the moment. But I make it Salvador 24 points ahead of Farioli for second. It can still be mathematically done by the Italian, but it looks like Salvador's got this one in the bag. You saw on the podium there, Joe Kelso. Kelso, of course, in the Moto3 World Championship, where these guys will surely be heading very, very soon. Salvador for sure. And Ivan Ortola, Moto3 World Championship rider, giving out the trophy for David Salvador. Those two rivals, of course, in the past, probably rivals as well in the future. He's got a year of data, I think that is, if my poor Spanish is correct. I think it's a year of data, or internet at least. But here's the Spanish national anthem for David Salvador.
Ese aplauso.
25th different Spanish winner in the Moto3/Junior GP class since its introduction in 2012. David Salvador signed his name in history, and there'll be plenty of Prosecco DOC sprayed on the podium. But celebrations, of course, won't be too crazy because they've got another race later on today, the final race of the Finetwork FIM Junior GP World Championship season that closes our program later on. That's coming up in a few hours' time, though. Plenty more action between now and then. Steve's joined me back in the comms box. Steve, first win for Salvador. That was a heck of a race.
Yeah, and it was a super way to take it as well. Salvador obviously moving up to the World Championship next year, but this is a nice way for him to cap off his Junior GP career.
Salvador, a winner at last by 0.02 of a second ahead of Colin Vire. From row 7 on the grid, Filippo Farioli finishes just under half a tenth short of victory. Champion Jose Antonio Rueda tagged at the last corner by David Alonso comes home fourth. Luca Lanetta in 5th. Harrison Voigt, Alberto Ferrandas, Cheryl Detweiler and Marcos Ruda in the top 10. New Zealand's Cormac Buchanan in 11th. Boazri, Ralston, Arbi Aditama and Philip Ton with first points of the year in 15th. German rider looking good. Alvaro Carpe in 16th ahead of Torrin Collins, and plenty more riders going all the way through the field. Facundo Yambias then did get back in the race. He took 19th, but the Uruguayan rider was in the mix right from the start. David Alonso, David Almanza crashing out of the lead group in the last 2 laps. They'll be keen to make amends later on. Angel Piqueras as well, another rider who's out, as well as Shira Foodin Asman. In the championship, Jose Antonio Rueda continues to lead. These championship standings haven't been updated, but he does continue to lead nonetheless. David Salvador is 24 points clear of Farioli. Shira Foodin Asman and Angel Piqueras are now mathematically out of contention for second overall in the title. Further down, of course, there's no change for David Almanza. In 12th place there for the Brits watching on back in the UK and elsewhere. Eddie O'Shea isn't here this weekend. He had surgery for an injury sustained prior to the event, and he's recovering. Full focus on 2023 for Eddie. Sharil was in that group in the top 10, so Sharil will pick up good points there in 18th place for the junior talent team riders, along with Arbi Aditama and, of course, Tachkorn Boazri, who is a race winner in 2022, back in the first race of the year at Estoril. Jacob Ralston with 2 points to his name as well for Australia. A titanic first race at the Circuit Ricardo Tormo here in Circuit de Valencia. Colin Vire looked like he had it done, but instead it was a first ever win for David Salvador with Husqvarna on top in race 1. Plenty more action to come. Moto 2, ETC and Junior GP Race 2 later this afternoon. But at last, David Salvador, a race winner in Junior GP.